And we are live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on another SpiritSide Chats. Happy new moon and happy equinox. I believe it's like tomorrow or the next day or something. Is it the 21st? I think normally is. So that's exciting.
Yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday actually about this, and it's like you're saying that this period right now, especially because of the new moon, because of the equinox, it's like a wonderful time for creating big changes, creating big shifts in our lives, or at least realigning if we've been thrown off balance or thrown off of our kilter after all of these crazy changes in the last while. Because there's been we've had all of these hurricanes and like natural kind of events that are taking place that are kind of a bit of an upheaval in the world. And so, September 23rd is the supposed big kind of celestial alignment. The moon is also doing something very interesting of like covering up 3 planets that it doesn't do except for once every like 30 years or something like that. And so this might be the end of this big window of kind of cosmic calamities that we've been going through. And so the theme for today's call is on finding balance and like all the different ways that we can do that. Because last time we talked about meditation, and that's one of the ways that balance can and should or can be achieved. Yeah, I won't say should because everybody walks their own path, right? But yeah, let's open it up. And also, would anybody like to lead a little bit of an intro meditation?
I mean, if nobody wants to, I will. But
Aaron always does.
I think it's that everybody wants to so much that they're all afraid of. Oh, yeah. Joshua, I'd love to hear your meditation if you'd
Totally.
do the honors.
I'd love to. I was actually going to ask Symbogian if he would, because I haven't heard one from him yet.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Well, thank you very much for that offer. Symbio-Gaian, by the way, just as
Thank
a reference. You. Yes, it's a little bit of a challenging. I've heard that over time. So, thank you very much for the invite to participate in the opening channel here. So, if we could all just simply begin by closing our eyes and getting into the moment, and going into prayer. You can leave your eyes open if that's necessary. And as always, it always begins with coming to the heart. Just taking some deep breaths and feeling that central place. Allowing that subtlety of presence to begin to embody us, literally becoming us, as it flows gently and profoundly through all of the channels of our body, our mind, our spirit, and our cosmic presence. From this place of heart, allow the body to resonate the purity of love. And this is a purity of love for all, not just simply human, but all creatures, all time frames, all histories, all futures. True love manifested unconditionally. And from this place, offer this love. Offer this love down through your body channels, through your central corridor, down into the heart of this blessed earth. Let great Gaia feel you as you offer that divine channel. And wait a moment as you feel her send her love back to you. Take a few deep breaths as you sit in this presence. And once you feel her, give yourself the opportunity to bask in that warmth. She loves you more than we could possibly imagine. She's our great mother. And with her with you, take an opportunity now to send this radiant love from the center of your chest that is already manifest outside of you in every way you can imagine. And send that to the heart of our son. Feel this great masculine presence, your great father. Feel it as it bathes you in the warmth, the bliss of the grand connection. Let that sit with you and wait as you feel the love. Allow that to fill your chest. Ground it to that central place of your heart. Prepare ourselves for a day of beauty, of conversation, of sharing, of caring, of true abundance, and the reality of what wealth actually is. It is this connection that we all share with ourselves and all of us and the cosmos, with this great mother, great father, and great cosmic connection that we share with all of the universe. Today, with this new moon, this equinox, and with, as Jordan has mentioned, many planetary alignments that are unusual to this day, let us keep ourselves open to the shift that is occurring so that we may stay in alignment with our greater purpose and move through this world empowered to be I am. Take a few breaths to ground that energy through. And when you're ready, may we begin.
I am that I am, forever expanding love, bliss, and happiness.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much.
That was a spin-off of Drumbelo's Unity Breath. So that's, he will guide you. I was going to say that, if ever we have an opportunity, doing the Unity Breath meditation would be very powerful, something that would be great to be guided, and also something that would be great to have as an influence for a lot more people to understand. It's very powerful, very profound, and it can connect us in ways that are just simply that profound.
Beautiful. Well, I feel balanced. How about you guys?
I just made a little
Namaste.
note in our episode list for like Unity Breath meditation video. I'm like, okay, all right, that's in the queue now.
Oh, that'll be fun too. Yeah. There's just so many things to make. It's funny because like we got this list of like because we want to do the Merkaba meditation as well and do like a whole series of different like meditation videos. First things first, we got to get the tarot done.
I really like
speaking of-
Drumlo's
yes,
Merkaba meditation. However, I think that his unity breath meditation is far more simple, and I've noticed that it's more intuitive. It's more in touch with the balance of both the masculine and the feminine, and the child, of course, which is the coming back to ourself every time. So that is certainly something to be considered, without trying to go through all the mudras and the various different types of channeling and visualizations. It's much more simple, as you've noticed. It's coming into your heart, going to the heart of the earth, the heart of the sun, and then expanding that through your own channel, the central channel of the child. It's really quite something, and he does a very good job of guiding us through that as well. So I think there's a YouTube video of it, pretty sure of it.
Nice.
So yes, anyway.
Yeah, no, it really was. Was that one also in like the Power of the Heart book?
I believe it may have been, actually. It may have, I can't remember which book it came from, but I think it may have been part of the Power of the Heart.
Yeah.
Is it Power of the Heart? Something akin to that, yes.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. Like, let's open it up. How is everybody doing? Let's hear from some of the people.
It's a good day.
Welcome, Philip. Yeah,
Thanks.
it is, isn't it?
I don't know about everybody else, but finding balance was a good theme for this one for me. I've had a lot of stuff happen this last month, and keep having very intense meditation experiences. And there are moments where it seems like I'm losing my calm. I'm getting angry at things that would normally. And I was meditating on that, and I realized that in a lot of ways, myself, much like society, is shifting and changing. And so I noticed that as I had these, there was these experiences was when the hurricane was hitting and flooding and things like that. So I don't know that it was so much an actual literal personal issue, so much as a way I define something inside myself. And a lot of that has been changing over the last month. I don't know about anybody else, but I like the idea of finding balance. I've been working on it all month, and it seems like I never left. I'm more like a leaf floating on the wind.
I completely hear you, actually, because this, yeah, it was interesting because like this whole past like month, I have been doing sort of a very strict practice of like it's kind of like an hour of exercise every day, 2 hours of meditation every day, trying to eat a certain way, and being like very kind of very structured in a sense. And for the most part, like again, like the month was like really good up until like literally like this past weekend, where I pretty much just made a decision of like just feeling kind of tired and wanting to take like a day, 2 days to pause, to just float, right? But like in doing that, my like mood and energy kind of like tanked, and I had a really rough couple of days. It was very. Sorry, I'm just hearing myself in the background a little bit. But I don't know who it is, so I'm just gonna like mute everybody. And then we can all just mute and unmute ourselves as we need to. Yeah, and coming out of the weekend, it was really just like it was funny because in my state of consciousness, I'm like, I have all of the resources, all of the tools available to make myself to like rate, to like change and to change my consciousness, to raise my vibration, to come out of this funk or whatever you want to call it. But like I didn't want to. I mean, in that state, I was like, no, I'd rather be a pile of sludge. and just like not really do anything and have that experience. It really kind of compounded to the point of like experiencing such an extreme of going, okay, now I'm like so uncomfortable that I like have to make a change, which is really, I guess, what I was like subconsciously pushing for, to the point of being like, okay, now go and like do this like long meditation and go and like talk to someone and open it up and like try and find some healing and some balance with all of this stuff. And like, again, like through the course of like yesterday, especially, and overnight and this morning, with the meditations and everything, it's like, again, just an instant shift and change. But just one final thought too on Joshua, what you were saying on like redefining ourselves. What was very curious and a parallel here is that my license plate was stolen off of my car yesterday. Like sometime in the middle of the night, the previous night, some people came into the back of our house and like took my license plates off and like put on some stolen ones, and like we're like driving around with my plates, like apparently scaring people, because I had the cops come to my house, or this house, in the morning, and we're like, what's is that your car? And I was like, yes. Oh, those are not my plates. What is happening? And I talked to a friend about it afterwards. I was like, what do you think like the significance of this is? And she told me it really seems to have to do with like the way that you identify the way that you identify yourself and the way that you understand yourself, because the system likes to put fixed names and boxes on everything, but you are like this, you're beyond the box in the system, but like consider the way that you understand yourself moving forward, like who are you as a person? And that just really kind of got my whole motion and energy really thinking and changing a lot. Just even in the last day, looking up like more name meetings, like Nicholas brought up before, stuff like that. So either way, yeah, I guess that's just kind of like, that's my story. And
I'll just say, also, like a few months ago, someone came to my house and stole our car. It was a Mercedes. And
wow.
They actually found the car. And it had guns in it. And like they brought the car back, but they arrested the guy. It was like this gangster guy. So my dad, he put like cameras around our house now.
Wow, that's crazy. So we're really all in the same boat then, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing.
Hey, so Jordan, are you gonna do travel again for Spirit Quest?
I would love to. It's all in good time though, because there's like, right now it's for at least for me and for us, and what we're doing here is really about grounding in the all of the work and these videos and this information that's really coming through, And that was the biggest challenge that I found, was that while traveling, making little video blogs was very easy, but doing actual like full-on spirit science videos was a bit more challenging.
Okay.
Karen, it looks like you're trying to say something, but I think we can't hear you. It might be your microphone, like settings. Oh, she says, I'll be back. Okay, cool.
Well, I wanted to potentially take this opportunity to make a little segue into one of the main projects that we've been working on over the past little while here, and sort of talk about a little gift we got in the mail, I guess, this past week. I think, Jordan, you know what I'm talking about?
Sorry, yeah, I do. I can go for it. Hold it up.
Oh, again, like, I don't think there. You can see the holographic on it.
It's like a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Some you guys are some of you are still muted, but it looked like Eddie, you were trying to say something. But
just simply that it looks absolutely amazing. Whoever spent the time on this is definitely a profound gifter. That is certain. Look at those.
Wow.
So we actually just found a print company online, and we loaded all the cards into them, and they have a couple different options of like a holographic deck. We also got a, just a regular standard deck, and we're still playing with like the fonts around the cards to make sure everything's like really legible and readable, and like border sizes and stuff like that. So this is really just like this is our first test deck, I suppose. But we're really excited about it. We should have like, again, we want to start getting like rolling these out with the new like Tarot video series, which of course comes in line with the Kabbalah series, and we're going to start talking about astrology and stuff like that. So it all kind of fits together into a nice mesh.
Now, did you base these on the Rider-Waite or the Thoth deck or the Crowley, or like what did you? Is it your own sort of archetypal symbology? Like what's going on with these?
The answer is yes. So I've done a lot. I've played with Tarot for probably five or 6 years now. So it's just like I've played with a lot of different decks and a lot of different like symbology, and I didn't even really know about the Kabbalah stuff and the correlations there until just very recently. But when I started drawing these cards, my intention was to create like a harmonious fusion of the Crowley Thoth deck and the Rider-Waite. And so there's like a lot of the cards actually are like a fusion. Like if you looked at like the Rider and you looked at the Thoth, if you put them together, it would be like the Patch Tarot deck. I think people are really gonna like it because of there's also like, there's all the cards have different astrological correlations and correlations to the Kabbalah in all these various ways. And so I did my best to like try and put as much symbolism of all of those elements into each card as possible. And then also to make it sort of like a learning deck. So like around the edges of the cards, there's, like in the Thoth deck, you've got like a little symbol of like the Hebrew letter. And then on the other side, you've got like the astrological symbol, and like that's the whole information. But I really wanted, like, I never understood that or what those symbols really were when I was learning it. So I wanted to make it easier. So every card has, like the number and the name at the top and bottom. But then on the top left and right, there's like a keyword for like an upright meaning and a reverse meaning. So if you draw it upside down, it's like the reverse is like actually upside down text. And then at the bottom, it actually says like it has the picture of the Hebrew letter with like the name of what it is. So like, like the star would say, it would have a picture of Zadi, and it would actually say Zadi. And then over on the other side, it says Aquarius, and you've got a little Aquarius symbol. So that it like becomes a very like a learning tool in addition to all of the other tools of that which it is, because it's such a big symbolic puzzle that like fits together. But yeah, no, we got cards. It's starting to happen.
I actually really look forward to getting an opportunity to see these in my hand. They look really beautiful.
Yay! Yeah, yeah, totally. Thank you. We're really, I'm really grateful for Aaron, honestly, for like pushing so much on like, come on, let's get another test deck out. Let's, and because I'm always like, well, we'll wait. We could like change this and tweak this, but it's like, no, let's get these out. So it's a really nice balance, because otherwise I don't know if I'd ever get these out.
People are asking how much they'll be. Do you know that yet?
Probably between $40 and $50 at this point in time. We're hoping that we can, like prices will probably change as things go. But right now, when you're self-printing, it is a little more expensive, and we don't have like this big deal with a big company and everything like that. So, but we're going to do our best to get the prices to a reasonable rate for everybody. Something that's good and affordable and yeah.
Do you guys have the first deck yet?
Oh yeah, so you probably missed it when Aaron was showing it, but Aaron was just showing our. I don't know if I click on your name, Aaron, I don't know if that's going to broadcast your picture to everybody.
Wow, it's beautiful.
But that one's a little, I mean, these ones are going to be a little bit hard to see just because they're holographic, and so the lighting is you know, really shiny and like reflective. But also it looks really cool in person because of the, like, you know, you turn it and like you can see it sparkle.
Wow. Congrats, guys.
Yeah. And actually with that notion too, like all of the descriptions and everything have been written. So once, like probably this week sometime, though we've been saying that for a couple of weeks now, hopefully, like
a long time.
hopefully the actual like the full card directory will be available on the website for everybody, on SpiritSide Central website for everybody to see, so that you'll be able to go in and like read about the card and like look at the picture and like get the whole, just get the download on like what each card is and how it works. And that'll be like the beginning, you know, because once that's up, then it's like there's nothing really in the way of stopping us from like starting to create the Tarot video series and stuff like that, which is kind of been the goal from the beginning, right?
Yeah, no, the web pages will be coming together very quickly here. We were just sort of, again, putting the final stamps on all the cards, getting those last tweaks out. We realized that, again, some of like the keys on the borders after we had printed the first deck weren't quite as legible as they needed to be and stuff like that. Like, you can't really test these things until you have the actual cards. And so because we've done the first now test print of that, we feel like the way that the cards are at right now should be ready to go to create something that everyone's going to really love and get behind and resonate with. And so now to like start producing the pages, I think the way that we're planning on doing this is having the website being available for people to go through and continue learning. And then as the deck becomes available, as the book gets published and things like that, they'll always be linking back and forth, and it'll be sort of like an online reference for always. But then the cards will become available very soon. We're probably going to do a pre-order as much as we can, again, to keep the costs of everything down. But everything, ideally we'll do like an economy deck or something like really affordable, and then maybe like a deluxe holographic deck that might have a little bit something more in it. But we're going to do everything we can to, like get the love that's in these cards in people's hands and get them using it.
There's also a book that's probably going to be like 300 pages or more, called the Book of Patch, that we've been writing along with this. So like it's kind of like all those descriptions are like a third of what was actually written for each card, but it's so much that we've compiled it into a large super book that has like the description, a reading, personal notes on the making of each card, like a little behind the scenes. And then there's also like an introductory to Tarot, like a large intro to Tarot section, and then a large like esoteric mystery section at the back that's all of like more of like the Kabbalah and the astrology and how it more intricately fits together in ways that people might not know about, or also like kind of just strange things about Tarot that like takes a lot of research to understand, like why Crowley was so insistent that Tizadi was not the star, and like explorations into that. But also like I know that it's probably not anything that most are even like familiar with, so just like we'll save that discussion. But that book. Oh, sorry.
Not to. I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you familiar with the Michael Tessarian approach to tarot? Michael Tessarian is one of the most profound adepts in our current age, insofar as tarot is concerned. He has a podcast with a guy named David Whitehead, who kind of pings back and forth between these. And he did a Path of the Fool series that they just finished very recently. And it is quite profound. He actually tells a story of submitting some very eloquent changes to the Rider-Waite deck because of some of the variables that he had came across through various research and the coordination of all the different decks. And through a deep study of the history of tarot and where it comes from, and you know, a very deep understanding of astrology and what that's all about, and how it grounds through the psyche and what the archetypes represent, and just so on and so on. And he was actually turned down by their team, and he immediately saw that there's a little bit of a the word ego isn't quite right, but it's something akin to that with that whole lineage, because it was passed down to, you know, another group of trustees, and that trust is no longer, you know, the original holder of the Rider-Waite. It's a different group of people. So you know, he went about doing his own interpretations and submitted the various different types of changes and the subtleties of what is being presented in the cards. So if anyone would like to have a little bit more of an in-depth, very profound look at some of the variables with the tarot and what's going on there, Michael Tessarian is definitely someone that you want to get your brain around. Now, he can go very dark with some of the things that is happening, only because he wants to get to the root of some of the mystery traditions and some of the brotherhoods and sisterhoods that are on the planet right now, that and have been historically. So be prepared for some of the darkness to come through, but know that his light shines brightly, and he's more of the warrior spirit than the angel spirit, if that makes any sense. Like, he's willing to cut you into pieces, because, you know, it's important to be able to have that warrior spirit on the planet. But if you are of the angel type spirit, where you really do just carry that positivity and really profound vibe about you, like connecting with source and heart, filter it through that presence. Know that where he's coming from is designed to help those that are in darkness come to light, through the power of the sword that he brings. And those of us that are practicing more of that angel side, the side that is highly polarized into the light, just know that that's where he's trying to direct all focus. So be prepared for that, if anything.
Awesome. Yeah, no, actually, I have heard of that series, but I haven't actually investigated it to the depth that that it's been recommended. Actually, it's not just you. One other friend of mine told me to watch that a while ago, and I was like, yes, I would love to. And then it was like this like massive long super series, and I was like, just, I guess, yeah, no, I didn't take the time. But now I have like extra reinforcement. But Aaron's gonna be mad because I'm like, Aaron, don't publish anything. I'm gonna watch this whole thing. We're gonna make a bunch of changes, and then we'll and that's kind of the reason why I don't think I watched it.
Won't be mad.
But yeah, actually, I think I would love to see that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it just sounded too, though, that there was a lot of parallels between that guy's journey and the research that we and Jordan was doing in compiling the Patch Tarot deck, of realizing all the discrepancies, finding the astrology, going deeper into the Hebrew, the history of Tarot, like all of the same elements that Michael was like that he got the information from, all of the same research that was going into that allowed him to get that perspective, is sort of like a parallel journey on what Jordan was going through in discovering all of the little discrepancies between the decks and finding where that like again, the story of the Fool and how all of that was really like, that journey was to be illustrated and the changes that were made. Like, I feel like we probably, if anything, could have like fast tracked the research by, again, like studying it from someone who's already done all the work. And it might have just been easier for us to do it that way. But I think we went about it the hard way and just went to the source of all the information, did our own studies, and probably came out with a very similar sounding result of, you know, changes needed to be made, you know?
Yeah, I'm
Kudos for that, by the way, that you guys even did that. Jordan Atal is absolutely incredible. Not very many people are willing to address the importance of the archetypes, and to do so in a way that can be presented to people so that they can use that every day to further their own personal journey. That's something that we all owe you a deep debt of gratitude. So I very much look forward to the end result, but I also appreciate the journey you're going through, because your own evolutionary momentum is clearly speeding up through the process of all of this, as much as it, you know, is a challenge to, you know, absorb the end dates and all the things that you want, like your deadlines. Well, you know, we want to do it by now, but you know, clearly when you're in the middle of the profundity of understanding the dynamics of the core elements of human life and the life that goes along with human life, deadlines don't work. And even the word deadline is like a weird word, right? Like it's like
well, thank you. Thank you for saying that. Actually, if I kind of feel compelled to kind of just express something in relationship to that, and kind of like my in my journey, in my consciousness, and what I've been kind of going through in this past little while is almost actually feeling as if like, I don't know how to describe this. And like, oh, it's funny because as I'm like formulating the words, I already know like the answer because I've sort of had like expressed this before. And you know, we're really, I guess it's that like we're all on this journey together. That's the answer actually that's already coming to my mind. And like, it's wherever we're all at is exactly perfect. Because what I'm feeling is like that I have this expectation for myself, or it really, and this is the thing, is I don't even know, like sometimes it feels like it comes from spirit, but then also sometimes it feels like it comes from ego. So it's sort of a double loop, but it's sort of this like expectation of myself to just embody or hold a resonance that's particularly high in order, because, you know, like, just as all of us are, like I too am a reflection of everybody. And so if I'm resonating at this level, then that helps pull everything up. And that's something like that for all of us, you know, that's a kind of a part of the point, I guess, in a lot of ways, this like spiritual evolution. And so it's almost as if like, I feel like, you know, if I don't fast for the certain amount of time, or if I don't, you know, meditate for so many hours, or if I like drop the ball and like feel terrible, then I feel like I'm like letting everybody down and like bringing everything down, and like seeing all of these like disasters on the planet and being like, there's like nothing I can do because I'm not at the place that I would be if had I made these decisions back then to like, you know, like fast longer or exercise more, or, you know, not indulge in my own addictions, you know, like if whatever that is, if it's like food or marijuana or whatever, you know, like there's and it comes and goes in waves, right? Like there'll be periods where I'll like really push myself really hard, and then like, and if I don't ease out of that thing, then it like crashes down. Yeah, I don't know, you know, I guess I wanted to be comfortable in like opening that up and kind of expressing like kind of that wave that I've been going through. And I really appreciate you saying those things that you did, Eddie, because
I just felt a massive wellspring of compassion for you just there. There's something I'd love to share with you about what you're saying about your journey. When it comes down to, first and foremost, you have this devotion to raising the vibration of the planet and the consciousness upon it, you and the people that you surround yourself with. And I feel that, you know, we all sense that, hence the reason why we support you so fully. And I would just simply, because I've gone through very much that same trajectory of oscillating between feeling on top of the world and I am providing the resonance that I'd like to be able to provide, but also the human nature of folly and being able to express ourselves in a way that we are not big G gods, we're small G gods. And we are all here to express ourselves with these learning curves. And that approach, your empathy is already really dialed in. And for those of us who understand that path, give yourself the credit that you deserve. You single-handedly are not going to be the person to deter hurricanes in Florida. So, you know, like, I just, as much as we want to believe that we will be, and as much as your resonance does participate in deterring these hurricanes, what you're doing is actually helping Drea. Drea is helping you. You guys are in each other's field right now. That's the magic. You guys need to use your expression of one another to create sparks. That's where the beauty comes from, because that's where that pairing of the masculine and feminine get to really happen. You know, what I love about, you know, seeing two beautiful people sitting beside one another is that when you compare each other, like take the Taoist practices of not the Confucius Taoist sort of side, it's more the ancient, like the Yellow Emperor kind of side, where you can actually use the interaction between the sacred masculine and feminine to create a dynamic that you bring into the world that is so much deeper than any individual can do oneself. We are, in our human form anyways, there's a reason why we have a male and a female. The energies balance themselves. And when you can come together with that divine inspiration to share and make love, and it's really making love, you're making and building and sharing love. That's where this all comes in, because, you know, tarot is very cerebral. It's very mental for the most part. It's always, you know, let's think about this or that. But you've got someone sitting beside both of you right now that can help you come from cerebral down back to heart. And heart is where it begins, ends, and flourishes. Then you can use the mind as a tool that it is, because the ancient Taoists, they understood that everything is medicine, everything, from the transmutation of our sexual energies to mental energies to our path in life. It's all medicine of the spirit to come back to the profundity of our small g God self, so that we can connect to large self. And actually, funny enough, you know, your videos on, I can't remember the scientist's name, but it was talking about the nature of how we can connect to plant energy, and he connected the diodes to the plants and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, absolutely amazing. I practiced that on a
the Baxter.
Yes, the Baxter effect. Thank you. Yes, I loved that video. I watched it like 7 times over, like just over and over again. This is great. This is exactly what people need to understand, is that the dynamic of the way we share love in the world and our emotional context is so profound. And imagine if you had plants around you and you and Drea were in a moment of embrace, true embrace, like the one where you're going through the meditative inertia of being able to be present with yourself. And you have all of this forest around. You're giving back to that in ways that none of us understand in any level. But it's being presented and it's being represented through your embrace. And then you carry your individual self along, charged up with that love, charged up with that presence. You know, it's really, really quite profound. And so as we use your tools of tarot to get our heads together, use that as the tool to come back to heart. That's what the ancient Taoists understood. It was always about coming back to heart. Now, they also had the whole idea of becoming immortal. They wanted, you know, the immortality of life. That's a bit of a different conversation, but it nonetheless ties back to coming back to heart. So that's what it's all about. And I very much appreciate that you would share that you're having these challenges on your journey, but they tell me that you're still here in your judgments. Come back to heart, and you've transcended them, because that's the unity. The duality is the mind. The unity is the heart. So as we come back to heart every time, know that you're supported, loved deeply, and cared for. And the universe is showing you that by surrounding you with people, places, events, and opportunities to continue your fabulous journey on this path. And that's the reason why I've been attracted to your work, because I can see what's going on with your world. I can see how much devotion and dedication you put in, more than what most people would do, more than I even do. So that's a very interesting thing. And I'm just deeply grateful. And I wanted to share that wellspring of compassion that I felt for you, Drea, Aaron, et al., everyone else who's been part of this. You guys are all amazing people, and I love you very much. Everything that I've just said, by the way, applies to all of you and all of us. So just make it known.
Thank you so much. It's funny too, because just on the tail end of what you said, like as you were talking the entire time, I was sort of almost experiencing as if everyone, like from the mind or the eye of everyone else watching, and that applying so vividly to everybody. Like we could cut out just the section of you talking and put that as a video on its own, and it's like this personal dialogue between you and anybody who watches it.
That would be so awesome.
We might have to do that.
You're welcome to use this as you will, my friend. This is all God's energy. Allow it to be. So mote it be.
Oh, so grateful to have you here, and everyone. Thank you everybody for being here. This is awesome. This is very. It's. I mean, I'll say it's exactly what I needed to find some balance. What I needed to hear and wanted to hear, and yeah, just gratitude.
All right, Jordan, I was just wondering.
Hey man,
like, out of all the sacred geometry shapes and like things, what's your favorite?
Can you have a favorite? Okay, first of all, I want to ask you where your video is, because we're just seeing a green box and I want to see your beautiful face.
Okay, I just put a tissue because I'm kind of like scared of like 1,000 people seeing my face. But all right.
But you've done it before.
She has a point. You're on a couple of our live streams now. I think. Oh, we have. Karen just jumped in and said mine's the hexagon. But Karen, don't be afraid to like throw out the verbal, the out loud too, if you like. If your mic's working again. Favorite geometry? I mean, it's they're all
like Magula or Metatron's cube or the flower of life, the seed of life, hexagon, square, triangle.
I like the flower of life.
It's Drew likes the flower of life.
Yeah, mine's the flower of life for sure.
I think mine's the flower of life too.
It's
I like the 3D flower of life.
I find it's curious because when you really start to look at each one of, I mean, there's infinite, but let's take like the 5 sacred forms for universe: the flower, the fruit, the seed, the tree, and the egg. If you just take the time to learn and study each of those and like look at the correlations with nature, you can see they naturally create each other, right? And like you can take it out of the realm of geometry and just look at like the flower produces the fruit, produces the seed, produces the tree. And the egg is sort of this 5th element in all of it that could be seen as all of it, but also then correlates too with sort of that life, like the embryo, like that jump between plant and animal, you know?
Yeah.
And also, Eddie just posted a link to goldenmean.info/kit, which I'm guessing is like some information about geometries.
It's actually Dan Winter. He created something called the Star Mother kit, and it's an icosahedron and dodecahedron that implode upon each other, and it's actually the root of space-time. It's the root of how the heart filters the conductivity of literally co-creation. So it's really quite profound. It shows the vortex of life. His website, with all due respect, Dan, if you ever hear this, is really quite challenging to navigate. It's not your standard web, web 2.0 or 3.0 or anything like that. It's
very 95.
It's very 95, exactly. Like you're looking at Netscape here. So if we could do anything, it's to present an opportunity for this man to have the representation online that it deserves. But moreover, the Star Mother Kit is truly profound. If you can study any of the dynamics that are going on with that, you will have a deeper understanding almost instantaneously of what he calls the negentropic phase conjugation as it implodes to the center. So yeah, it's quite profound. If you're into any kind of biophysics, this is where it's at.
Cool. We just pulled it up. I think that we posted it in the chat too for anybody watching. We have a new favorite. But yeah, it's just Nicholas. I don't know if I could like pinpoint a favorite, but
someone just said, Nicholas, don't be afraid on the chat to show your face.
Oh yeah, he went back to gray.
I know that Philip was gonna add something. I don't know if you remember Philip.
We cannot hear you though. Maybe your mic settings?
I can hear him.
I can hear him too.
What? Why can I? Oh.
Me.
No, this is weird because your volume was down on the control room thing, but it didn't seem to have. Oh, good, because it was just affecting me. I don't know. Either way, yeah, take it away.
Oh, I was just going to try to continue the train of thought about like the masculine and the feminine and the balance between the two. Idea of balance between like unity and diversity, and how like duality and unity kind of go together. Trying to keep a balance between like our individuality and like our collectivity. So I don't know. I just kind of want to open that up, talk about like individuality versus conformity, or like the ego versus the higher self, all that kind of stuff.
It depends on how you want to frame it. If you frame it from the unity, then it's a self-empowering concept. Individuation is differentiation observed within oneself. We have a liver, we have a heart, we have various organs, none of which we would be able to do without. But once we start to, and we're looking at that from a dualistic perspective, there is one and another. But with individuation and that unity perspective, we have the ability to then go through the process of realizing, okay, well, I have these different parts, but they're all part of one collective organism. And so, so many of us are apt to try to cut things apart, to try to find, like, cut the brain to see if you can find the mind. Well, I mean, it seems a little bit silly to try to do so, but we've been doing that for many, many, many years. And the same rules apply with dialogue. Often in dialogue, we slice up ideas to see if we can find their roots, which is fine. But what if those ideas need to live as themselves? And they're part of what Ken Wilber calls holons, or whole parts. They are literally whole pieces in and of themselves of the larger whole that they are transcendent but inclusive of, or inclusive but transcended by. I hope I am clear on that. Ken Wilber talks about stages of integral dynamics. It's probably one of the best treatises. His brand new book that was just released in 2017 here is, I think, compulsory reading for anybody who wants to understand the stages, states, and just places of your evolutionary consciousness. It's really profound. It can be a bit heavy, so you have to be prepared for a very in-depth study of the dynamics of reality and the way, especially consciousness, is participant in that. So when you speak of duality and unity being parts of the same life, you're absolutely correct.
Trinity.
Right, absolutely. And a quadrinity and a septinity and a many others that you could possibly imagine. We are an infinite ball of integrating parts that all in and of themselves are fully functional wholes, as long as we allow them to be and recognize them as those. So that's what I present to the room.
Yeah, that's all good. Also, like last chat, Michelle brought up this idea about how sometimes we can get lost in the perspective of like, I am all, or I am we. So I think like the balance that we're talking about here is between like our individuality and our collective self, right? So like the whole like e pluribus unum is like a good example, like out of many one, or like the body of Christ. Like there's many different parts, but they're all interdependently forming body. So yeah, just like the balance once again between who you are and yet who you all both are at the same time. It's kind of trips me out sometimes.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's a really awesome concept. Like myself personally, in my own journey of understanding, have come through many levels of seeing the reflection of myself in another person. And I think the to me, the way that this reality was created was to give yourself the opportunity to learn more about yourself by seeing that piece manifested as another person. It's sort of, if you were to take the perspective of being everything, absolutely everything, you would almost have nothing to share with. You would have no way of really interacting with yourself at that point in time, because there would almost be nothing by the fact that everything was unity in that perspective. So there's theories out there that say that sort of like the creation of this reality was done when that source collective decided to split apart from itself to create that individuality, so that it would now have something to interact with, so it could like share a hug or an expression of love, and go through that experience, because it couldn't do that before when it was absolutely everything. So the split between sort of like the masculine and the feminine energies at this point in time was to give it both perspectives, so that it could, like, in full creation, in no judgment, in like complete creation, it needed to experience both sides of the equation. And so it would have split infinitely to give everyone the potential of, you can literally have your own experience. You can choose that side in which you want to live and express yourself, and that potential is there. And then when you can see what another person has done and their potential from their perspective, from their unique, what they bring to the table, you can learn more. And so I feel like all of the ingredients that we have around us are essentially there for us to learn and grow and remember really that core essence of where we came from. But again, it's done from the perspective of viewing it outside of yourself, because if it was all inside of you, it's almost harder to digest in a way, and like you might not appreciate it, or we'll say potentially at our level of consciousness, it would have been a lot more difficult to understand. So this environment was kind of created as, I almost want to call it like consciousness kindergarten for us to like learn and grow through, you know?
Just to continue that thought, I mean, what would you do if you had eternity? Like, if you had eternity, you would just be like, oh, gee, I'm bored. And you were a creator, you would just create, and you would start creating. And I think that's probably, I mean, what would you do with eternity? Like, this is what you do.
Create yourself as a whole bunch of humans and go around and have some crazy experiences. Yeah, I know, right?
I think eternity is more like a circle than a line, because eventually you'll run out of things to do. So eventually you'll have to just do what you've done before to enjoy your life. So it's not like you're really experiencing new things. It's just it's a circle of eternity, of infinite time, except just the same experiences of that infinite time.
I would propose the idea of a spiral. I think like that circle does continuously kind of like go back and return to itself, but it will never perfectly be exactly at where it was, because it now has a new level of experiences kind of like compounded upon the last time it looped. So I would say like you're right, but there's a degree of progression that I think gets added to your experiences, because you're never going to be back at the same level of consciousness necessarily that you're at, because every moment that passes, you're given the opportunity for new experience, for new growth, for new ways of understanding stuff. So as it comes back around, you're not where you were before. You're at a whole nother level of same, but different.
I think we can relate it to, like, there's a lot of ancient texts, especially in Hermeticism, that relates the cosmos or the galaxy or even the solar system to be like an ever-turning wheel, right? And I always thought about that of being like, okay, well, that's more like a circle, right? Like time is circular. They like in these writings it speaks of that. But if you think about it, actually, like with a wheel, we can conjoin the two ideas together and have like a wheel that it continually goes around in the same circle, but it's moving. Right?
A torus.
Right, exactly.
Aspiring
always-
Taurus.
It's always perpetually going somewhere. It's somewhere new than it was before, and it might even come around and loop to the same place. But then, yeah, like it's still, and technically, like it has more wear. It has, and this is a very physical example. It has more use. It has more like the journey has been. You know, there's experiences that have gone along with that.
How many experiences can you possibly experience in eternity?
Infinity.
All of them at the same time.
Yeah, all of them.
Welcome, Anthony. What's going on,
Yeah.
brother?
Hey, sorry.
Hello.
You might have a little bit of an internet challenge.
Good to see you all.
Hey, yeah, likewise. Welcome.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. I didn't realize it was going to be today, so I was just out at the shops.
Well, we're very happy to have you.
I'll help.
Coming together from all over the world.
What a beautiful place.
Yeah, I've just arrived in France yesterday. We're at this beautiful, like, countryside French home.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's like right in the middle of all these cornfields, and there's a big castle up in there.
Somewhere new.
I know, and you're always outside in like amazing places.
Well, we're just doing house sitting, and so we move to a new place every other month and stay in the house, and we just work and do things on our computers. As long as we have internet connection, it's fine.
That
That's a
is
great plan.
so,
But
Anthony.
yeah, carry on. I've got myself out, so I know I'll listen to what you guys are saying.
Oh, I was just going to ask you. The topic of today's call is on finding balance, and I wanted to just open it up to you if you had anything to add on what have you found in your journey to be some of the most important pieces in finding balance.
I guess I mean a good way to summarize something would be from light comes dark, and from dark comes light, and through that process we find, we can find balance, or we can create extremes, or a mixture of both, and those will kind of that's the catalyst for change and for growth. I mean, the Buddha always talked about like the middle way, and that's, I guess, like a ample mixture of both good and bad, or those two extremes, or duality, as we call it. So I guess that's what I have to say right now.
Thank you very much. That was very good. Very good.
That's something that
Stuff that's been brought up. Is there anything that I've missed that was very, very interesting?
How does yin and yang apply to the balance?
I couldn't hear that.
How does yin and yang apply to the balance?
To me, that's just a graphical representation of it. It's got the fact that it's, a circle. There's the continuation, the infinite perspective on it. You have the curve that goes in between, sort of like representing that it's not necessarily a straight line perspective in between them, like those sides fringe. And then in between that, you get the balls on the sort of like inside, the dark and the light, and the light and the dark. And so that's just sort of like the representation of it in an image, right?
Yeah, that's it. And that's just another way of saying male, female, creative, logical, light, dark, good, bad, whatever you want to put a term on it.
Or like the video I shared with you guys where Bruce Lee is like, it's a balance between instinct and control, and like they relate it to the yin and yang. I think that's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, Bruce Lee said really cool stuff, especially when he was just about to hit stardom in the West. He he was doing some fantastic interviews.
I agree.
I think
I
also
think
with
The whole
balance. Sorry, I'll take it. I think also with balance, like if we're already on the topic of Bruce Lee, and he uses like a lot of his body. He does a lot of probably energy work through his body. It's like learning how to let things go and let things flow through you. And as like maybe to correlate that, we're like kind of conductors, kind of like electrical conductors, and like letting just energy flow through you and not letting anything get attached to you specifically. So it's not like one side or the other, but you just kind of like let it go.
Yeah. As you say, he says one thing like, what does water do when you put it in the teapot? It becomes the teapot. You know, put it in a cup, it becomes the cup. The water can crash or it can flow. Be like water, my friends.
So good.
He's a very wise man.
I know that Philip has been, you had something that you were trying to say a moment ago. I was wondering if you'd like to share that.
Yeah, just this idea of like utilizing the dark and the light is one that I've personally struggled with, because to me it's like, that sounds all nice and good, but then when you put it into practice, it's like, well, when is it okay to use or to utilize the dark, you know, the dark energies are bad or whatever. And I think it's like trying to figure out when that's appropriate and when it's not. So like a good example would be like tolerance and intolerance. And I saw like this great graphic pretty recently that talks about tolerant, but we have to be intolerant of intolerance. So that would be a good time to be to like utilize intolerance is when you're being approached with intolerance. You can't be tolerant of intolerance. So it's this paradox of using the bad against the bad.
That's it. That's exactly it. Fight fire with fire.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's just a good way to put it. I mean, like a practical example would be something like, you know, if someone is being aggressive or something to you, and you know, or people you're with, you can't just react to that with something that they're not going to respond to. They're not going to respond to anything that's like loving or you know, they may do a little bit, but certainly not at that time in that angry state of mind. So, you know, you'd probably have to put up a defense or some kind of aggressive stance to neutralize that, and that's all it would be, to neutralize it, to cancel it out to some effect, rather than you know, going over the edge to then making it so that you're the aggressor or you're the one spreading negative energy. It'd be to just neutralize and then spread positivity after that point.
Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction to make, is because people will hear, you know, it's okay to be light and dark, but they don't really understand in what context, you know. And we might just go around spreading fire without realizing that we're doing all this damage.
Religious people might call you Satanist, as they're doing with SpiritSide. There's a channel somewhere that's calling all the guys here Satanists.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Actually, just the concept of, you know, like, when is it okay to use the light and the dark, actually kind of reminds me of that movie Doctor Strange, because the ancient one, the woman, would like use, you know, the dark dimension to like seal the dark dimension, but like also used it to like extend her life, and there was like a controversy there. Is that okay?
So is for yin and yang, the black is the masculine and the white is the feminine?
The other way around, isn't it?
Oh, the other way around, yeah. Because you have to consider it from the perspective that like yin, the black, the darkness, is like the womb of creation. This also relates with Kabbalah, like Binah versus Hokmah. This is like it's the container, and it's like from within that darkness the light is born. And so traditionally, and then like the white emanation, right? It's like the light pours outwards, so that's like the masculine outpouring. But again, that's just really describing, like trying to describe the nature of these energies. Because one of the things that happens with a lot of people who are learning about this stuff, kind of, it can become a very, like, especially if there's a lot of gender sensitivity, it's like, well, you know, I have a lot of light in me, but I'm a woman, or whatever, right? And it's like, it's not really about that, but like describing the dualistic nature of all things within all of us, right?
Yeah. I think even like both genders have masculine and feminine energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like how, like, there's in your brain, like everyone here has seen pictures of like MRI brains, right? What? So the gray matter, I think, signifies like masculine, and the white matter signifies feminine. Yeah. And actually, if you haven't known this, the females, they use both sides of both hemispheres of their brains to talk, but then the masculine, like males, only use the right side to talk of their brains for speech. And also the corpus callosum in females is bigger, but is smaller in men. And also masculine brains are a little bit bigger than female.
Yeah, that actually is all very, very interesting and curious, because it's like, it does actively demonstrate that even in the physical body, there is still, you know, like a dominant, either this or that amount in like the ratio of what we would call masculine and feminine energy. And interestingly too, it's like the feminine, and this was always described in like the Flower of Life books really well, but like when you're connected to the right brain, or the female side of the brain, it's automatically connected to the heart a lot more intimately. And so when you're, and this is, this also relates with women in general, being like just a lot more intuitive and more connected with each other and like with the world than like just the male populace, like looking at the world as a whole. But you know, it's that, yeah, it's like if you're in the female energy of your body, if you're in the like the right brain, you automatically have more of a connection between the two hemispheres, and then more of a connection to the heart. But then if you're more on like just the masculine, the logical side, similar to how I was and how Eddie described me to be earlier, it's like it's easier to become disconnected from these other two places, like to form that trinity within between the heart and the two hemispheres. So yeah, I think that would kind of be my interpretation, I suppose, of what you're describing, these key differences, you know, between genders and bodies and all of that.
Also, there's for the chakras, each chakra has a different each chakra is either feminine or masculine. So let me just bring this up. Chakras. I think the second chakra is feminine, and the first chakra is masculine. I'm just going on Google Images. All right. All right. Sorry. Yeah. The first chakra is masculine. The second is feminine. The third is masculine. The fourth is feminine. The fifth is masculine, and the sixth is feminine, and the seventh is unified. The seventh chakra is both masculine and feminine.
Nicholas, you should totally drum those Flower of Life volumes. You would totally enjoy them. Between he talks about the channel energies between the chakra, between male and female as well.
And like the direction of the spiral as it flows.
Have
like,
you read it yet, Karen?
Channels, yeah. It's very logical though.
Yes.
You know, like it kind of also, as Eddie was saying, that like for some people that logical structure is more necessary. It's more needed to help tap into that. And for others, it can just be a very natural, intuitive flow. You don't need to know all the, you know, this channel or that channel or these chakras or what's, you know, how does it all work? Because it just comes very naturally just to be in your heart and to be able to open up and share love. And also welcome, David. We're happy to have you. Also, I mean, and for those who are, and Nicholas as well, like if you're interested in the more logical approach and wanting to understand things on an even an even deeper level or another level, I would actually, just because this is what I'm going through right now, I would invite you to take a look into Kabbalah, because there are 7 rows, like 7 chakras basically, but you have 3 of them that are split down the middle, and you have a male side and a female side. And it's very interesting because then you can start to relate, like, they would describe the root as feminine because it is like the great receiver, and then the next one up is masculine, but then it starts to split and it goes up in sort of this very intricate DNA spiral, if you will. But you can relate that and correlate that to the chakra system and gain like another layer, I guess, another deepening of understanding about how the chakras really can work and apply through your body.
Wow. I wanted to go back to a thing that Philip had mentioned, sort of like in regards to the fighting intolerance with intolerance and that whole concept there, because I think there were some really good points there I wanted to bring back. And now that David's on the call, this is actually going to be a really good sort of segue into that. I'm going to turn it over. But one of the sort of aspects that I was reminded of as you were sort of explaining that there was the warrior spirit, that sort of energy of, you know, I will go out into this world with a passion and with a vigor that's going to be able to, you know, fight against that darkness and willing to stand up against it. And so sort of like the question is like, at what point in time does that passion have the potential of, you know, turning into this dark, or like where is that line drawn? But before I get 100% into that, one of the other thoughts that came up to me, or the feeling that I had, was reminded again of the Celestine prophecies in the later books there. There's this one scene that's illustrated where a person came into the room and their vibration was just so positive and so uplifting that a lot of the other people, like the negative energy around there that they had within them, they were like, what's going on here? Like, where is that coming from? And it was sort of the idea of, when you go into a conversation, if the other person's being intolerant, the way that you can potentially counteract that is by deeply tapping into your heart, by getting into your breath, and by holding the intention for, no, we are going to communicate with each other. And it might not happen right away, but I will hold the intention of, this conversation will be a conscious conversation, and we will get that truth. And by holding that intention, it creates the potential for it to happen. And so I want to ask sort of David, is like, the question is, how do you be sort of that noble warrior energy spirit without crossing over the line into being overbearing, or like, again, like fighting from a place of passion versus, again, like negativity? I'll have to unmute you.
David, you're muted. David, you're muted. You need to unmute your microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, yay. So one of the things that, you know, it's interesting that you bring this up. One of the things that a lot of people always tell me is that I'm always smiling. And they're like, why are you always smiling? What do you have to smile about? And because we're in the Army, and the Army basically just sucks. And, you know, as anyone who's in the Army, it does. And, you know, we go through a lot of crap, and especially through, with my particular unit, we have a bad name. Like, just all the crud that we go through is just, it's a bad name. And one of the things that I think of, you know, when you ask that question, how do I maintain, you know, trying to stay positive, it's difficult. I will say that it is difficult. There are times when I get bogged down with the negativity. I'm constantly surrounded by negativity by all the other people. That's a given. There's so many other people don't know or don't follow the things that I follow. But one of the things that I think of constantly is I'm actually Mormon, and it's a different type of Christianity of the Christian faith. But I am Mormon, and it's something that we follow, something that we hold to, that we're always positive. It's always like, they talk about the light of Christ or something like that. It's like we have something inside of us that's always there, that's just a positive vibe that is just frankly always there. And a lot of people see that by how we act. They may not know what it is, but they see it and they react to it. And they say, "Oh my goodness, you're always smiling, or you're always happy. Why is that? I don't get it." Yeah. And that's something I come across a lot. And most Mormons that you meet are like that. Most of them, not all of them. And I'm not a perfect Mormon. I've done some bad things in my past before, and I try to keep myself clean, and I do a pretty decent job. But I'm not perfect, and I have my faults, but I accept that, and I just continue on and just keep going. Try to do the best I can. So, and I've been told a bunch of stuff, but I've been told by 2 different people from 2 different states who don't know each other that I'm a very old soul. I've been told by one of those people that I've always been a warrior. So that was kind of interesting to hear. Like, I've always been a soldier. Like, every time I come back, I'm always a soldier or a warrior of some kind. And then what else? Well, I've always been told by a lot of people I'm just odd, but that's normal. I think it's holding to a belief. It's adhering to something positive, and then following that, picking something positive in your life and following it. Yeah, I have a belief in God. I have a belief in a good, just God who wants to have us be happy, and will do whatever He can to keep us happy. He will bend over backwards to do whatever He can to help us and keep us happy. And that I think is amazing. And to know someone's out there watching over my back is awesome. That makes me happy. That's an awesome thing. So I mean, that's kind of my way. I don't know if you guys can hear me, if I'm breaking up or not. Or
you're great.
Crystal clear. Crystal clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yay.
Do you know my uncle actually is in the Army? He's a colonel.
Yeah.
His name is Anthony Hui. Do you know him?
Oh, there's so many people.
What?
What branch is he in?
I think he's in the Afghanistan one. Afghanistan.
Well, that's okay. So is he deployed right now?
No, he's in the States right now.
Okay. So when I say what branch, there's aviation, which is the helicopters. There's artillery, which is what I'm in, which is the long range cannons and stuff, long range guns. And then there's regular infantry, which is the guys running around with the guns, on the ground. Then there's the signal, and signal is the guys who fix all the computers and get all the networks up and running. Then there's what else is there? There's the special forces. There's civil affairs. There's psyops, psychological operations. There's all sorts of stuff.
He's in the one where they have bases.
Pretty specific.
We send them all loves.
Oh,
that's pretty much all of them. Just to be clear, he is in the United States Army, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Pretty big, right?
Yeah. Okay. What base is he stationed at?
Somewhere in Afghanistan.
Well, U.S. or Afghanistan?
Sorry, Nicholas, you're just so adorable. I love you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, I understand. It's civilian versus military. I understand. There's two different things. You know, when I came into the Army, before I actually went through basic training, I was of the civilian mentality. I have no clue what a rank was or anything like that. Well, I went through the future soldier training where they train you up before you go to basic, but before that, I had no idea of anything. So, you know, I actually was of the idea that the military was bad before I joined. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know much about it, and that's the thing that a lot of people see. It's two different mindsets. You go in, you're in the civilian world, and you're subject to everything that everyone tells you on the civilian side. Then you go into the military. Then you're subject to everything everyone tells you on the military side, but you also still get to experience and still remember the civilian side. So it's a different mindset. It's just different. And a lot of people don't understand it. They can't understand it without going through it. And that's something I noticed a lot. Like so many people, so many civilians, like like us as military, we go through certain things, you know, sit in line, wait for stuff, you know, just like we do in the Army, but we do it a certain way. And we watch civilians do it, and we're like, oh my goodness, what the heck are these guys doing? These guys should be, you know, they should be snaking the line. They should be where you wrap the line back and forth in a zigzag. They should be, you know, going through one after another, you know, actually hurrying up. You know, like the whole hurry up, waiting on you, hurry up. You know, sometimes we'll chant that, you know, while we're behind like a bunch of civilians, and they'll just kind of start staring at us, and we'll be like, "Hey, hurry up!" But
So the civilians are part of the Army?
What's that?
Are the civilians part of the Army?
Well, there are civilians who are in the Army who are part of the civilian side. Some of them have never been part of the Army. Some of them are prior service. The prior service guys we usually get along with pretty good because they've been in it. They know what it's like. They've been through it. They've been in the suck, as they call it. So they know what we go through. They know what it's like. They've been there before. They have that mentality. They've just had to go back to the civilian world and relearn that. So a lot of those guys who get in right out of high school, they haven't really experienced the real world. They've been living at their parents' house, going to school. They graduate from high school, and then they go into the Army. And some of them go 20 years in the Army. And for 20 years, they are in the Army doing whatever it is they're doing. And then they get out. So you imagine, you know, usually they join the Army around 18 to 20. So they get out by the time they're 40, and then they've got to learn what civilian life is. They're 40 years old. They're retiring. They got to go back into the civilian world and learn how to do that life. They never learned it. If they did learn any of it, they've been in so long that they forgot it, and now they've got to go back and learn it. And they've got programs set up to train military members how to go back to the civilian world. Because a lot of people just, a lot of people, they have problems. They have a hard time. They've been in this world for so long. They now got to go back to the other one, and they have no clue how to live their lives. And so they talk about some people have problems, you know, the whole PTSD stuff, you know, other people, civilians, they see that and they're like, what the heck is going on with this guy? But they don't know what it's like. I mean, I'm about to deploy in about a couple months, about a month and a half. I'm about to go over to Kuwait and possibly somewhere else. I don't know. But I'm, you know, about to see what it's like over there too. And they tell us stories about, you know, you get like, you know, it's all like, I'm in El Paso, Texas. So, and you guys been in Texas. We have these things we call chia pets. And those are like bushes with sand that just blows into them, and it just keeps growing higher and higher and becoming this really big bush with all these branches sticking out. It looks like a chia pet, just really large. And we got those and a bunch of mountains, and then just sand and dirt just everywhere. And we're about to go to an environment that looks pretty much like that, just more sand. And they said the water out there, you go through cities, you can see trash everywhere. You're going to see water that wherever there's water, it smells like literally like feces. So don't drink it. And then you know, people will be sitting there, you know, taking dumps all the time. You know, out in the middle of nowhere, because that's what they do. That's what they do. That's how they live. You know, we think we got it good over here. We do. But some of us think it's not as great, but man, we don't know how good we've got it. It's just something to think about for all the civilians out there.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I'm hardcore praying for you and for everyone in your unit and the division they're in, just like support and positive vibes. Because I mean, you use the expression of people don't really know what it's like to have been in the suck.
Yeah,
you know? And I just want to say, like, my inspiration behind the work that I do is to make it so that less and less people have to go through that suck. I mean, there's an expression that goes, you can learn from your own mistakes or by the mistakes of someone else. And myself personally, like, a lot of my passion comes from, like, I've gone through a lot of suck. So I kind of like, I know what that's like, and I can empathize, I can relate. And I feel that a lot of my inspiration and my passion comes from the fact that I was able to survive through that, and it kind of built me up to channel me into something that is now stronger. So I can kind of see the potential benefit to a person's evolution of having had gone through something really difficult, because it does forge you into something stronger. So I get that, but it just helps me hold a resolution for there's also probably a better way to get to that, like, love, peace on earth state of consciousness, as opposed to having to go through so much suck to get there. But I definitely do hold gratitude for the people who are willing to put themselves out there to stand up for something like a bigger cause. Because you're right, there's probably a lot of good things that are happening there that people don't want to see that side of it.
We're finally getting rid of the proxy army that's over there.
Yeah.
Finally. Yeah. But yeah, well, thank you though.
We can probably. Oh yeah, please.
I wanted to say one more thing for everyone. Is anyone tracking September 23rd? Is anyone following that? Like, anyone know what that's about? Like, I've been reading up on it. Does anyone else know what's going on that day besides the solar eclipse?
We posted an article about it.
Is there a solar eclipse?
I've been busy. So there's supposed to be a third solar eclipse or something, but it's I don't know if it's an actual solar eclipse or something else. But supposedly, I haven't read the clip you guys wrote, but it's supposedly September 23rd is supposed to be when Nibiru comes around the bend and just we see it and blocks out the sun for like 3 hours or something like that.
So
a lot of people are talking about it's supposed to be a third solar eclipse though. Something.
Yeah, man, times like this, I'm like, man, I wish we had that Nibiru video out, but that's all right. So what the research that we've done and what we've put together in our article, in a nutshell, is basically that there's a particular alignment between the moon and, like, you know the specifics. It's like
Is
Virgo,
this the one where Virgo has a crown?
Virgo has the crown, and like 3 other planets are inside of Virgo, so that it appears that it has like 12 stars as opposed to 9, which it normally has, or something like that.
It's around of 12 stars.
Off the top of my head, but I think that's it. And then what the cosmic significance is basically that it was written, you know, in like the Book of Revelations, that like there's when, you know, there's a maiden in the heavens with 12, you know, a 12-starred crown or something like that. This is like the beginning of, you know, the King of Heaven being born, or something.
So, can I add something to that?
Please, Abby.
Okay, cool. Jupiter in the Jewish calendar, Jupiter was always considered the king. It was listed as the king for the Jewish astronomy. Sorry, did I say calendar? The Jewish astronomy. It was always listed as the king, but the Romans labeled it as Jupiter. Well, Jupiter has been inside of Virgo, so like inside the womb of Virgo, going through. So it went through. It was. Let me see if I get my finger here. All right, so it went through Virgo, and then it went retrograde, meaning we started coming around the sun, and it looked like Jupiter was going backwards. And then we came back around the sun, and Jupiter kept going through, and now it's about to pass through the legs of Virgo, like being born. And so it's been in there for 9 months. And yeah, it has the crown of, it has the lion at her head, so Leo, and then it has a crown of 12 stars, which is Leo plus the 3 wandering stars, the 3 planets. And then it has the moon at her feet. And that only occurs one time in the 6,000 years before and the 1,000 years after. This is the only time that occurs. And there's supposed to be a solar eclipse on that day too. And this is the significance of this is that it is written in the Bible and in Revelations, and it's supposed to be the dividing point between the first 3.5 years and the second 3.5 years of the 7 years at the end. Which and when that happens, there's supposed to be so they said it's going to be darkness for 3 hours and then light for 3 hours, and then I assume the sun will go down. So I'm thinking what's going to happen is Nibiru is actually supposed to be coming in between, because the solar eclipse doesn't last 3 hours. So I'm thinking what happens is Nibiru comes by during the solar eclipse, blocks out the sun for longer than a normal eclipse, and then causes it, like someone was saying, a scientist was saying that what's going to happen is the tectonic plates are basically floating on the magma below the Earth's crust. And so what will happen is these plates will be lifted up a little bit out of the magma, you know, as the gravity pulls on them, and then they will come back down. And when they do, they will be shifted out of place in different orientations, and it's going to cause like 600-foot tidal waves. It's going to cause massive, massive earthquakes, and they called it a great quake in the Revelations, but in the English version. But when you retranslate the original word, it actually means mega quake. So there's going to be mega quakes. It is, you know, think about it.
It's good to know you guys. It's really good to know you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, good to know you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good life. But like Florida is going to be underwater. The plate is going to be, like the North American plate is going to be lifted up and pulled a little bit towards the north. So like on a little bit on the Arctic plate or whatever's up in the Arctic, it's going to be pulled a little bit up there. And so the bottom part of it is just going to sink underneath. So Florida is going to be underground or underwater. California, parts of Mexico, maybe even Texas. I don't know. So we're going to have some massive, massive changes. And that's supposed to be the 23rd. And it said there was like a
3 days
period of, yep. That was a period of like 2 weeks or something that there's going to be changes. So also the system that Nibiru is in, because Nibiru is part of the Nemesis star system, and Nemesis is our binary star. So the system is pushing and pulling asteroids, debris. So we're going to be in a shooting gallery. So yeah, so not only is this going to happen, but then it's going to drop a bunch of crap on us from above, and so we're going to have big balls of fire crashing into the ground. And yeah, and then that will happen, and then the last 3.5 years will commence. And there's supposed to be two prophets that die, they get killed, and they lay in the streets for 3 days. And after 3 days, they resurrect, and that's when the crap really hits the fan. So, yeah, as for the end of the world.
Are we talking about the Great Tribulation?
What's that?
Is that the Great Tribulation?
Yeah, that's the trials and tribulations. So 3 days.
I would love to learn where you're like reading this information because I want to.
That's in
Okay,
Revelation.
so I've been getting a lot of my stuff from YouTube videos. So I mean, I've been watching, like, a lot of people have been tracking this. A lot of people have been, like, I watched a bunch of different YouTube videos that were all talking about September 23rd. Some of them didn't know what it meant, what the significance was. Some of them were actually pointing to the idea that this was supposed to be the end of days. I think it's important to note that this is not the end of the world. It is not the end of the world. That comes 3.5 years later.
Can I add something here, maybe a little bit?
Yeah.
It is more of maybe sort of a less than tragic perspective. So, according to the, if you were to look at some of the stuff on the Gaia network, there's a really good program. It's about 8 series in now, called Cosmic Disclosure with
that's
Corey
what
Good.
I've been watching that too.
Once you start getting a little bit deeper into the Blue Avians and understand what they're here for, they've been here to prevent catastrophe.
They're here, yes, they are here to prevent, but there's also something they said that there's.
I don't know if
there
anyone
is
can
some
hear me.
stuff
I'm kind of breaking up a bit here.
Needs to happen. So, like, even Corey was saying, when the Great Flash happens, they're thinking it's between 2018 and 2024. So
Right.
it's a 6-year segment, and I'm thinking it's going to be around 2021 because according to the 23rd of September, 3.5 years later would be about 2021 or 2022, somewhere around there.
In any event, what basically was being alluded to is that regardless what the prequel dialogue to these storyboards were and what people are talking about from the doomsday perspectives, the Blue Avians are here to co-create the harmonic resonance that we have been so dissonant with. So they're the ones holding the resonance for us in lieu of us being able to do that ourselves. Kudos to you, Jordan, for doing all the work that you've been doing, by the way, to try to hold that resonance so that we don't have collective psychosis. And Ital. So that's essentially what these blue orbs and we are a participant in. So we don't have to worry about tectonic shifts and polar just craziness that we're all participating. These are all fear mongering, and it's all about the cabal bringing down the vibration again and seeding all these ridiculous notions and resonances within our collective platform. Had, however, we not been helped by this blue avianic group of beings, we would very well have already been destroyed. I think it was in 99 that the Mayans had predicted the end of the world, right? So, or the Hopis had seen the end of the world actually occur, but Earth, through a very specific type of agreement with the universe, has actually already shifted us into a different type of resonance platform. So it's allowing us to go through the process of our own ascension and evolutionary, our proper evolutionary drive. So that's just to kind of balance, again, today's appropriation is balance. There's some balance in the energy so that you don't have to be so afraid of those notions, because we all get so caught up in these, and especially as someone like yourself who understands the dynamics of war and understands the dynamics of conflict. Well, let's root those right back to their original source, and they're the dynamics of fear. And fear represented creates all sorts of different things, like conflict, like disillusion, like an inability to be centered in one's heart, like all these other different types of parameters. We could list them all day. Like tectonic shifts, just the world. So we really don't have to be so grounded within that vision, even though it was planted within the Cabal's version of the little black book we like to call the Holy Bible. We still have the ability to come beyond that tradition. There are far more things that we can do, especially with the assistance that we have from a universal perspective. Within just our own solar system right now, we have the ability to transcend all this, not only in style and with grace, but with beauty and the ability for us to co-create our lives forward in the way that is most attuned to what the universe wants of our evolution and what our blueprint of evolution actually looks like without all the catastrophe that is so prevalent in some of the dialogue happening on the planet. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents there.
Yeah, yeah. I do have a question for you. I'm wondering if I think Corey was mentioning something about the Rod Terrier was saying something they were posting or they were postponing, like the stuff that was happening that was about to happen. They were postponing that, giving us some more time.
Correct. So right there. That's what I wanted to illustrate, and I'm glad that you sort of create that. So Ratir Air is being represented through the blue avians. Blue avians take any shape that they need to represent the local representation of their ecosystems, whatever that looks like. So because avians are Earth's highest representation, not genetic modified humans here. Like avians and birds in general are the highest evolutionary representation on our planet from a land mass kind of perspective. So they represent Earth as a Gaia, as a living entity. So they come here and they look a lot like a bird feature that also has that representation of the bipedal species that is human, so they can most represent us. Now, when it comes down to the ability for us to be, like you mentioned, these catastrophes held at bay, they're being held at bay indefinitely while we go through the process of coming back to our unity consciousness. So we can transcend these problems so that the death in the streets and all the challenges that are allegedly about to occur and would have had we been allowed to continue on that same trajectory. We have a lot of people on this planet that are working overtime. Again, thank you, Jordan and Andrea and Aaron and all of us on this call. We've been working overtime to hold resonance for the right direction so that the others that are not so available to this can do so and come back to their own presence.
I have something to add later.
Yeah, I do want to talk to you. Actually, I want to ask you something. So there's something I've been trying to do, but I'm in the Army, so I can't really do a lot. I'm always busy doing something else, running around doing things. But I wanted to do something where we kind of connect a bunch of these groups. So there's a lot of different groups that are all kind of all over the place doing their own different things, and a lot of them are going for the same goal. And I wanted to kind of see if someone or me or someone else could try to connect them together. Like I noticed, you know a lot about you seem to know a lot about the whole thing about Corey Good and stuff about what's going on with him. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Dog barking somewhere, but I'm not sure if that's your mic.
Oh yeah, someone's dog's barking. So I wanted to ask, what was your name? Symbio Guyan or whatever. Yeah. So I wanted to
Eddie
see if maybe. Yeah, what is it?
Eddie for short. It's Symbio Guyan. I know it's not the best pairing of words. People can't read it very well anyways.
Well, I wanted to see if maybe you could assist. I've been, like I said, I'm in the Army. I'm busy. I'm about to deploy. I'm going to be out of contact for about 9 months to a year. So I'm not going to be here, but I wanted to get a bunch of people together, like a bunch of people in actual like contact, like a kind of like a network going where people were in communication with each other. Something so that, there's a lot of different groups out there that are just, they're all like separate, doing their own things and doing like, whatever it is they do, but they're doing their own thing separate without any communication with anyone else. I think it might even be that they just don't know if anyone else is out there doing the same thing, or they've heard of it, but they don't know who's doing stuff. And I want to create kind of a network. I want someone to make something where people can communicate. People can say, hey, there's this, there's that, there's these people, there's, all these people. Like, so Corey was saying something about that he was trying to get a bunch of people together for a mass meditation. But then,
so
Jordan,
David,
I don't think you knew anything about it.
Well, David, actually, what's interesting is that that's precisely what spirit science is trying to do. So if you've got a list, have a list of organizations, of individuals, of YouTubers, of bloggers, of people that are participating in this dialogue. Let's direct them this way to the Spirit Science crew here, and let's see if we can start to create more of a vortex of conversation around this. The conversation is already started, so let's just make sure that people know where they can devote their attention, their time, their influence to create a larger momentum.
Totally.
So,
I want to say on the tech side of that, we are literally working to create a forum, potential Discord server and stuff like that to engage people to create that community platform is on the list, and getting like a meditation calendar and events thing going is already what we're working towards. So that evolution will happen. You're in our Slack chats. And like very much, if you can like start just like suggesting names of people or stuff like that, we can get that dialogue going. But
I've got one guy that can at least hook you up with someone's, like a bunch of other people.
David,
drop it into the group, brother.
David, if everyone meditated every day, we would have a global meditation every day.
All day, 24 hours a day. And that's actually my message, is that let's just do the work. It's not about necessarily me and you meditating at the same time with the same intent. It's about me and you meditating at the time that works best within our reality, so that it's actually conducive to the harmonics of our time frame, and doing so collectively as a layered mechanism around all the time frames around the globe. It's not about necessarily me and Jordan meditating at the same time. Because first of all, he's in Central Time, I'm in Eastern Time. What if that doesn't work for us? What if his time,
I'm in Mountain Time,
and you're in Mountain? See what I'm saying? Like we've got
meditation groups of people in Denmark. Like it doesn't really work good when they're on the other side of the world.
Exactly. Anthony's in France. I don't think that him and I are going to be meditating at the same time, at least effectively anyways, right? So I think that it's necessary for everyone to do exactly what you're saying, David, so in a way that doesn't necessarily have to be and actually, as you've mentioned, Karen, I think that that's actually lucid, very lucid observation, is let's just do the work. If we just do the work, we build the house. And people can work 24 hours a day to do so. And we don't all have to be in the house at the same time. In fact, that would get a little sweaty. So let's just figure it out, you know.
Well, now one thing I wanted to ask you about, so Jordan was saying something about the idea of, not Jordan, I'm sorry, was it Corey? Corey was talking about the idea of multiple people doing meditation at the same time. How is a more powerful effect when you have multiple people doing it at the same time? It's like the idea, if you're sitting there with you're trying to hammer a nail in, and you got a bunch of people taking a little tiny hammer to the big nail and tapping it on the head every so often. But if you take a big hammer and pound on it, you're going to pound that nail right in.
Right. So let's actually, I like that analogy, but why don't we use an analogy of resonance? Let's take one guitar string and pluck it. You pluck that one guitar string and it has a specific sound. But if you take 1,000 guitar strings and you pluck them all simultaneously, you're going to get a very large in phase resonance that happens from that will have far more volume and far more effect than otherwise. So absolutely. But the reason I say that we all need to meditate, because meditation is going out into the field. Resonance.
Whoa.
What just happened?
Wow, that was so weird.
Did we literally just lose everyone on the call?
They don't want us to chat.
That's wild. Anyway, just to continue that thought, is that once we can sort of establish resonance and establish, so David, hey,
no,
to continue that thought,
at once, it's crazy.
It was kind of wild. The cabal doesn't want us talking about this. No, I'm just kidding.
I bet
so,
they don't.
Well, probably not. Right. So, getting resonance is like, if I'm over here resounding all day long in my heart, my neighbors are going to be feeling that just by default, and they won't even know it. It'll be a subconscious resonance. It'll be picking up just like a guitar string over here plucking. It's going to harmonize with their strings. Even on a single guitar, for instance, if I pluck the bottom string, the rest of the strings, without plucking them, are going to start to resonate at the harmonics that those strings are actually tuned to. So
yes, that's right.
When I start my meditation practice today, I've already done an hour-long devotion this morning before this call. That holds the collective resonance. If there's just 3 other people in my local community, I mentioned on another call, actually, Greg Braden speaks of an equation that talks about the root many people it takes to affect a mass of people. And it's so small, it's so minute. It's the square root of 1% of any given population to affect change positively or negatively. So when it comes down to the ability, but positive influence is actually far more powerful by many vectors when it comes down to being able to make that change shift. So when we take that square root of 1% of the population of the entire planet, I think that's about 6,000 or 7,000 people at most. So imagine that would be me, literally me and Jordan in Canada, right? Like that's all it would take. And maybe someone in Vancouver, and then, 6 or 8 people in the US, and then 12 people in South America, and then just keep going and going. That's not very many people to affect change. And all we need to do is overlap those resonances.
Yeah.
So
and
as we overlap, right? So that overlap, and we've got far more people right now that are meditating. And even the loosest way of describing the word meditation, I don't even mean sitting meditation. I actually mean walking meditation, daily living meditation, where you're actively living in your heart. In your heart. That's all that needs to happen. Collectively, we start to do that, and we have a shift that happens overnight.
Yeah.
The shift that you're speaking of.
Remember, what's his name? The guy from the other planet who came as an ambassador, kind of had a rounder head. What was his name?
Yeah, the triangle head guy or whatever it was. Or
no, not the triangle head guy. The one who they just went through their experience and they changed everything overnight.
That's correct. Guy. Absolutely. Because what they did was overnight they realized one thing, a simple thing, and it's about the heart, and it's about the connection, and it's about resonance. Drumvalo Melchizedek actually is talking about this right now with Birkeland currents. He's talking about how we can go into our heart in a very specific way through the Birkeland currents and actually connect to the entire universe simultaneously all at once. Jordan probably knows a little bit more intimately about this because I think you're actually working with Drumvalo a little bit more intimately in some way, shape, or form. So when it comes down to Birkeland currents and the capacity for us to instantly connect with what we are and who we are and how we are in the universe electroplasmically, we have the ability to then co-create an environment. One person connecting to their heart through Birkeland current channels and through the electroplasmic universe of the bioenergetic body is enough to shift the entire planet. Kabbalah doesn't want anyone to know that, because as soon as you pair Birkeland currents with heart technology of the biology of the heart, suddenly, guess what's happening? People are waking up, and we're co-creating realities that are truly blessings.
You notice a lot of people have been like really waking up. Like I talk to people, it used to be like 3-4 years ago, I talked to people about some of this stuff, and they'd be like,
"That's right." Well,
I didn't know a lot about it myself, but then I started watching. The first video I watched was Jordan's video on the alternate history of the Earth, and that kind of started waking me up, and I started watching more and more stuff, and here I am.
David,
oh my gosh! I just noticed that Karen.
Guys, for a second,
Karen.
We're slowly running to 2 hours, and I just kind of get this out there. I might be a little slow, but I will promise to bring it back around full circle. So about 2 weeks ago, we did the Power of Meditation live chat, and I decided to do my 30-day meditation challenge because I make excuses for myself. Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I don't have time. That's done. That's over with, right? That's over with. So I started my live meditation every day, and it's been anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. And I have gotten a lot of feedback from people, and like that's like really something that has been keeping me accountable. But I would like to share that the fact that I've been meditating, it's been 15 days now. And not only every single time I meditate, I get better at it. I notice the changes within me. My posture gets better. And it's like, wow, there's no excuse. In 15 days, I was like, I'm so much better than just once last month. And to add to that, all the waves that have been going on that are very strong lately, I've also have been feeling those as well, more than I have without meditation. And I have noticed the more aware I am every present moment, the more I start to see like quantum jumps in my reality, and kind of like my reality is sometimes rips in my reality, and it just reassures me of everything that is going on. And sometimes it can be overwhelming, but you know, it started with like the determination of who I want to be and that person that I want to become. And then also I want to say that because all of these energies are, all these waves are going on right now, I think we also have to be careful of what, because all these portals are opening, of what timeline we give energy to, because there's so much going on. Like there's so much interdimensional travel and things and energy in the air. So I would watch for what energy we give each timeline. Like, I don't know how to explain that, but I'm done.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing that.
That was beautiful, Karen. Thank you. It's precisely that. Think about the way an editor would edit a book. I just got my book back from the editor, and I remember watching him in the beginning of the editing flow, and I saw like 876 edits. I was like, yes, he must be like almost on the first chapter. And I saw that I went back and it was like 6 pages in, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on here? So speaking, like, the analogy I'm trying to draw here is that right now there's a massive editing campaign to the storyboard of the collective consciousness. And we're going to feel these different portals and resonances and things like that going on in active real time, especially those of us like you, Karen, are mentioning. You're becoming sensitive to these edits. You're becoming sensitive to these fluctuations of energy. But know that as you hold, as you've mentioned, we need to hold a storyboard. And that's what the great monks of the past, that's what the great Taoists, that's what the great wisdom traditions, that's what they were tasked to do, is hold resonance, hold a vision, and hold that in our heart. Because as we do that, we allow, like the act of meditation, to co-create that reality.
Couldn't have said it better.
Wow, this has been a very
why don't we
awesome
just leave that to the Chinese politics for now? But I think you're on the right track.
So Jordan, then I have something for you. Then I have another task for you. So if you can, where are you? There you. So if you can, can you write some names down? Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's a guy named Jordan Sather. That's like your first name, but Sather as SATHER.
Yeah, I wanted to. I mean, I was like sort of in contact with him a little bit, and I wanted him to work with us. And I always bring him up to Jordan, like,
yeah. So I talk to him every so often, and he's been getting in pretty good with Corey Good. And I really think you need to talk to him, Jordan. And communicate with him.
He's really busy. I asked him if he could do stuff with us, and he's like, I can't really write articles, and like I make my own YouTube videos, and already like really blowing up with like all of like Corey Good and like all of these.
Well, I'll see if I can talk to him to tell him, hey, he needs to get a hold of you guys.
I could just message him, but I don't know what, like, it's sort of like the idea of getting involved with people is incredible, but then when you actually talk to them, it's sort of like, what can I do? I'm doing my own thing.
Yeah, exactly. I understand. Well, there was that idea. Corey was talking about trying to get everyone to kind of accept, like, or like look at the similarities between everyone and stop this idea of getting everyone together to get everyone kind of on the same page. And like, so all these people were always, you know, going at it, you know, how do you put that? Symbiogayan. You know about what he was talking about, right? How he was talking about trying to get everyone together, get everyone to you know, work on the same goals and work on the same purpose. And if you guys have like like you guys could lay kind of the groundwork for creating something for everyone to kind of congregate at, like something where everyone could come to and meet at, if you know what I mean. Like
that's already happening now. That's what this is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what this is. Like, not everybody's going to do this, so we need to be prepared for that, and that's why we have to hold the resonance. My neighbor, I'll be honest with you, as much as I love the guy, he'd never participate in this conversation ever, not even once. He would think that we're kooky and cracked up, but it's that's why we have to be the harbingers of this. It is okay for us to resonate for others. We get to hold that. It's like a mother's womb. Okay. The baby can't do the fetus isn't the one in charge here. You know, although it's asking for nutrition, although it's asking for being bathed in you know, subconsciously, of course, and not even like not in any kind of conscious way. Various people on this planet just aren't ready for this information. But those of us that are actually far ahead in a harmonic, again, so the key of E and the key of D, well, they're very different in their sound and they're very different in their resonation, but they all activate within the octave of consciousness. And so we are holding a particular resonance within the octave of human consciousness right now. So if we can just maintain our resonance collectively as small, again, the square root of 1% of any given population is all it takes to effectively shift anything from happening. We know this through morphogenic fields. We know this through the, as we spoke about in our last call, I don't remember what it's called, but when the monks all sort of resonated at the same time and crime rates went down exponentially, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
Maharishi.
Right? Thank you, the Maharishi effect. So this is happening actively now. The more of us that continue this, and David, I love that you're asking for this to be part of the world, because you are going to be gone for 9 months. You know, you want to make sure that your active input is created here. Let it be known, unconscious or the morphogenic fields are programming those of us that are ready to receive this information. We're doing it, and we're doing it actively, and more than we ever have been. So let it rest in your heart as you actively participate in your world and active duty and your obligations, that those of us that have our specific duties in the world, we're doing the same thing. So rest assured that your words are heard and that your resonance is felt and that we are doing the work.
All right. Thank you. There is one other guy though too. I'd like to put another name in. Now this guy, he deals with a lot of religious stuff, but he talks about a lot of stuff in the Bible about how it relates to, or about UFOs and how they relate to the Bible and stuff. L.A. Marzulli. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so his name is L.A. Marzulli. I believe it's initials L.A. and then Marzulli. Mm-hmm. He does a lot of work on, this would relate more to what Corey talks about than to what Jordan has been talking about. But I think he's good for a type of meeting of the minds of like linking how things fit together, kind of like for building a history.
Can you rename that person again? What's his name?
L.A. Marzulli.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, did you find him?
I will look later. I'm curious.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, David, you can also share. I mean, if you have a list of other names and people to check out, you know, inside of our Slack group or even on Patreon.
Okay.
You could post a list of everybody, and then we can all go and investigate.
Totally.
When it's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and he would probably have other names of people to go to as well, but yeah, definitely him. I would say Corey Good would be a good person to get in contact with, and I was thinking getting in contact with him through Jordan Sather or David Wilcock, if you can get a hold of him too. So, but yeah, I'll put those in the Slack chat. Yeah, all right.
I think we make all these connections. It's just a matter of like being stable. Because just remember, like we're a company of 3 people, so there's just like so much to do. And
right now we pretty much spend like usually we try and hit a minimum of 8, sometimes it's like 10 hours of work, clocked a day on like getting the tarot things, getting the videos, getting articles written, building the website, doing outreach, community stuff. And the way that we see it evolving is like over time as we have the resources to expand, then we can bring in more supports and more both on the side of like research and journalism and animation, but also like community outreach and building up like different avenues and ways that we can co-create with other networks and people and projects and stuff like that, so that it can just continue to expand very organically. But we've definitely learned our lesson about like biting off more than we can chew and trying to and spreading ourselves too thin. So right now we have a very almost, I don't want to say strict, but it is just like a, kind of going, okay, here's sort of the line of what we need to accomplish before we expand out and start tackling more projects and stuff like that.
That makes sense.
And that's kind of where we're at. But also, like, I mean, that's, the tarot, as we're just bringing it back here, is one of the big hurdles.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about that.
So much, even potentially why there hasn't been as many videos even for this whole year. It was always my intention of making so many videos, but at a certain point after we started the health series, I was like, wait. Aaron and I actually kind of had a conversation. We're like, wait, before we like go and make this whole health series, like, got to get those cards done. And I was like, I do have those cards done.
Those represent a form of income too, right? So
sorry?
The cards, they represent a form of income, right?
Well, they will, and I'm really a big supporter of like creating equal exchange, because I know how money has been sort of, has been used to extort.
Hey, what's his name? Aaron is showing some cards up.
Yes, he is. I don't know if people can see, like I just clicked on this thing, if that highlights it. But
you got yourself muted, Aaron, but yeah, we're seeing the cards there.
But yeah, that's the Aeon right there. But I know we want to do like an equal exchange, to make sure that so when people buy a deck, they're getting something of like a really high value.
Okay.
And because I've just had, and this is like, again, part of my own ego that I'm resolving, is like my relationship with money, and also seeing how money is being used, and also seeing how money is like treated in like the social circles of the world and stuff like that, and like the spiritual circles and stuff, because there's a lot of people who are like, oh, if you're spiritual, you can't have any money. And I want to like redefine that, right? And we're like, be a part of the redefining of that, and write a story and saying, no, it's not about, like making all the money and whatnot, but really like generating resources by equal exchange with the global community, and like really the sharing of wealth, because the Tarot Project is like an emanation of quantum information, really. And creating an exchange, a value exchange for that, really will actually take the studio itself to another level and allow us to bring on new people and expand, maybe even get a studio, right? Because right now we're just working, living, eating, and everything just happens in this one house.
So may I add actually to what you've been talking about a little bit, David, and as well as you, Jordan? I think that this is actually the perfect segue just after you've said that stuff. So again, I want to come back to the polycultural body. David, you're mentioning that you'd like to see a bunch of groups get together and start to collaborate and really coordinate their efforts in a very lucid sort of manner, so that they're aware of one another. Well, what if I was to say that they're already doing that, but in their own special way? Like, let's just say spirit science is like the liver. Okay, it doesn't require direct communication necessarily with the heart or total collaboration with the heart. Okay, it is part of the larger ecosystem of the body, and those that are flowing through the liver's channels are doing everything that's necessary for what that looks like. So in order for the liver to be
oh, you broke up there. You're breaking up.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, a little bit.
So can we kind of hear now? Basically, what I'm trying to illustrate here is that all of these different organs spirit science is already a very large following. There's, you know, well over 1 million people who are aware, if not, well, subscribed, if not far more than that, aware of this journey. So those of us that are focusing in on the spirit science side are participating in padding the health of this liver within the body of information, conscious information. And we don't need to outreach further than that, because that's what the liver does. Okay. However, those of us that start to participate and decide that we want to focus on kidney information, like let's say, you know, Corey Good and the Gaia Network. Well, there we go. Now we have another piece of the puzzle and another piece of the information. Those of us that are on this journey are going to absorb and be guided to the most appropriate information to balance the system. Okay. So as we negotiate the world and begin getting bigger and bigger, those connections occur through various channels, like the lymphatic system. Well, it connects everything, right? So it's one of those things where we can utilize the services that are already happening. We cannot stress the liver with too much toxicity, or in this case, too much outreach for 3 people to accommodate. Right? We can't stress that organ beyond what it's necessary and what it's doing. So I love that you've mentioned that you want to go through the process of really unifying the different messages on the world, but that's already happening, and that's already happening organically and by default. So all we need to do is be our best selves, be our best companies, be our best collaborations, be our best sharing self, and that unity comes in, because that guides us all. Right. So Jordan loves this idea. You know, it's the way that we do this organically, and that we can do this while we maintain our own resonance. It's so important to stay in the heart. And if we're too stressed out, we can't maintain our own resonance. We can't maintain our own message, because there's way too much going on. Mm-hmm. Think about it like this. The sun, just the sun, it gives its light always, no matter what, to whatever is within this solar body and beyond. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't do anything like that. It doesn't have any of those notions of human consciousness that we often carry within our egoic, separated selves. Act like a sun. Give always to all people, all the time, regardless of the circumstances that surround you, inside or outside of you.
Here.
Give of your breath. Yes. Right. Act like a sun. Act like that thing that's behind Jordan and Drea. It literally is beaming from its central core the reality that is that disc, that is that sphere that we see in a 2-dimensional form. So give it the blessing. Let that be your heart center, or in this case, it's yellow, so maybe your power center. In any event, let that be the center that you're resonating from, right? And give it the resonance that you deserve. And that, my friend, is how we become what we need to become, and allow others to follow suit. It's that sort of first person dancing thing. If you can be the first one dancing, sure, you might look like a doofus while you're doing it, but eventually so many people join in. Now it's just a group of people dancing. Nobody feels strange about that. And people just start to come into the group, right? So
I see what you're
be
saying.
that first one dancing. Be brave, be the warrior that you are, and be the first one dancing within your group of people. Take the blows, take the hits, take the ridicule.
They all think I'm crazy, but I don't care.
Let them. Let them.
Eddie's like intense, but he means very well.
Yes. So
that's my triple Sagittarius energy.
Oh, nice. So
all Sag.
Can I give us a quote?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Can I give us a quick quote by Khalil Gibran in relation to what you just said? And it relates to this whole unity and diversity thing. He says, "Sing and dance together and be joyous, but let each one of you be alone, even as the strings of a lute are alone, though they quiver with the same music. Together, yet not too near together, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak tree and the cypress do not grow." Just makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Yeah, that's Khalil Gibran on marriage. That's his anthology on marriage. It's actually really beautiful. I love that so much. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
So I guess I'm coming at this from I don't know. Maybe it's a military side. Maybe it's the idea that when we talk about in classes that we go through, we always talk about the one main thing is power. Power is key, like electricity. having a generator. It's to talk about, the certain things that are necessary. And one of the things is comms, communication. We can't do anything without any comms. So if, you want to talk about how to take the military down, you talk about how to disrupt comms, how to disrupt communication. And that's a scary thought.
So going back to Karen's point, the comms in this case are very different than physical things. Our comms are our hearts. Yeah. As we resonate, we create those comms throughout the whole morphogenic field. And those of us that are sensitive enough will pick that up. We will communicate our efforts through resonance. That's how
I get what you're saying from that side, but my thought is there's a lot of people who aren't awake yet, or who are awake but aren't really receiving on the right frequency.
They're receiving to what they have to at this point. Everyone evolves at their own inertia and own momentum.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just thinking, if there was a way to do it, in kind of in this realm, in what's been doing here, kind of, it's like, have you seen Doctor Strange?
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember when he was trying to get his hands healed, and they were healing naturally, right? But he said, it's not healing fast enough. Do a stint of, from one artery down to the, from one artery down to another to kind of create a direct line of blood flow to kind of get his hands to heal faster. And I understand that because I actually have in my left shoulder here, I have a torn labrum, and that has never really healed right because they say that the amount of blood flow going through there is so small that it's going to take forever to heal. It's going to take a very long time to heal, and most likely it's just going to scar over before it actually gets a chance to finish healing. So, my thought on that is if you can kind of create lines of communication where there were none before, you can advance things quite a bit faster than if they just continued on the normal path. So that's where I'm coming from. That's my idea. That's my thought is, if you got two different people who are kind of talking the same things, but there's no communication between them and no one sees anything between them, why not create a path? Why not create a line of communication? Because if you get these two people to talk about something directly to each other to then kind of share ideas, it's like the idea of, the United Nations, kind of similar, maybe not the same, but kind of at least as a sharing of ideas, ways, routes of, people having contacts with other people, being able to do things. They may not have to talk all the time, but at least they have a line of communication where they can say, hey, what anyone know about this, or who's doing this? What's going on with that? Hey, should we do this other thing? Anyone want to help me out with this? Kind of lines of communication, because something in the Army, communication is key. Communication is very key. The big thing is always David, setting up those communication towers and David, stuff.
Do you think that maybe North Korea and China and Russia will go to the war with the United States?
No, wow. Let's not go there.
Okay, so now we're seeding conscious dialogue here. Anyways, so David, just to mention, and thank you for your question, Nicholas, but David, speaking to you wanting to harmonize and synthesize these lines of communication, know that it's already happening. It's happening on a daily basis. I know that your opinion is you see the nastiness in this world and you want that to end. It hurts your heart. You're in the middle of it all day long, and my gosh, I feel so much compassion for you. And those of you that are in your ilk, my friend, it is not easy to deal with what you deal with on a regular basis. So thank you from the depths of my spirit to what you do in this world. It's not easy, and you come here for a very specific purpose. But know intimately, my friend, that it is already happening. The reason why I'm here with all of you right now is because of this. The reason why you're here right now is because of this. The reason why we've all come together is because of this. On a daily basis, you're reaching out to people. On a daily basis, I'm reaching out to people. We have to seed these gardens every day, okay? And as we plant the seeds into people's spirits and minds and hearts, those that are ready to come to the, let's just say, the larger garden. Okay, we have a solarium over here that we're planting seeds with people, those that may not be aware, but then we have to plant those those particular seeds that sprouted and are actually ready for more information, we take those to our garden now and we plant them among the fields. So that's what's happening. Those of us on this call right now are already planted among the fields. We are already the sequoias that are holding space for all of the understory, right? So keep planting your seeds, my friend, as we all are. Those lines of communication are opening, and we are seeing an exponential increase in the dialogue, in the resonance, in the energy, in the practical dialogue, as well as in the energetic, more ethereal realm of reality. So know that it's there, it's present, and it's active, very much so. And especially because of the works of a trinity that we're staring at and because of right now. Okay, the trinity of the beautiful Aaron and Drea and Jordan. So let us celebrate them as the medium, as let's just call them the organ of the heart. It is best represented for sure, and among the rest of the greater body that we are all part of. So let's just offer that, and maybe just to sort of bring it to the original sort of point of conversation. This is all about balance. So how about that? You know, thank you, David, for your representation on the on one side of the spectrum. You're in the middle of the dirty, and a lot of people judge you guys for what you do, but we wouldn't be here without you. And I also want to say on the other side of that resonance field, you know, Jordan, Drea, Aaron, that, you know, your presence in this world, your work in this world is just as powerful and just as needed and just as much it's not the right word, it's the dualistic frame, but the weapon. Okay, it's more like the medicine for the world, for people to be able to participate in this on a regular basis, more and more and more in depth. And with your videos in the world, with your work in the world, with your tarot, with all of this stuff, you're helping to balance those like you, David, who are seeing the nightmare of life. We get to see the heaven of life through your eyes, Jordan, Drea, Aaron, and you know, you get to support us not having to deal with the nightmare, David. So thank you. That's a perfect balancing act.
David, can you drop your Instagram so I can DM you?
Let me see if I'm trying to think if I think I got an Instagram account.
You know, I'm in our Slack channel because Karen's in there too, and you guys.
I'm in the Slack channel.
Okay, I'll be in Slack then.
But I just want to say thank you for all of the input and all of the blessings that everyone has brought to the table today and shared in this video, and everybody who was watching too, and chatting with Drea here because she's been kind of doing the chat. This has been an absolutely magical call. I've really enjoyed like listening, and also a lot of what you guys have shared and said has been personally very uplifting and helpful for me, and I hope that that all of the resonance that we have created too has been equally as uplifting and helpful and supportive for everybody who's watching. So thank you all again for joining us on this new moon and this as we're going into the equinox. Equinox solstice. And just thank you all for being here. This is great.
I wanted to say hi to Nick's dog.
Hi. Nick's dog says hi.
Do you have a dog too?
No, I don't. I'm in the army. I don't get to have a dog. So.
We'll one day go.
Hey, Karen, do you have a dog?
Animals of all kinds.
What's your dog? Jordan, do you have a dog?
No, but my parents do, and it's her name is Magic, and she is adorable and a little bit crazy. So, but with that, actually, this does bring this call to an end. So thank you again, all of you, so much for everything that you brought and shared and existed by your spirit, your emanations, and we will see you in about 2 weeks on the full moon.
All right. So Symbiote Guy, Eddie, what are you on a Slack chat?
Actually, you're muted. But if you, David, if you just go in Slack and you search Eddie or Symbiote, he'll come up.
Yeah, I'm in there as Symbiote Guy, and so just have a look. You know, I should probably change that moniker. It's so confusing for people, but I just really like it.
I like Joshua's version earlier of Symbogian.
Symbogian. I've had that. Like, it's not. I've had everything, man. Like, it's great. Just don't call me late for dinner. I don't care what else you call me. It's just.
You're late for dinner.
Too good.
All right. Namaste. Later.
Namaste.
Love you guys. Have a nice day.
You too.